You're locked in to Fran Harris's Women's Basketball TV with WNBA champion, NCAA champion, sports announcer, and entrepreneur, Fran Harris. So buckle up, Buttercup. Here's the show.
So I'm late with this review, but I'm here. Let's talk about those games yesterday. How many of y'all thought the Aces going into that game would not defend home court and be heading to game 5 this week? How many of you, raise your hand in the chat if you thought the Aces were going to win that game? I'm talking about before the tip-off. Now, I'm not talking about after you saw how they played. Before the tip-off, did you think the Aces were going to win game 4? Gotta tell you, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure simply because I felt like fatigue would be a factor. The fatigue factor would enter the picture. And I've been saying all season long, as good as the Aces are, they don't have enough guns. They don't have enough people. You can't win. It's going to be an odd year, an unusual year in the W when a team with 5 to 6 players wins a championship. I think those days are gone. The league is too good. It's too good. Now more players are going to get into the league with expansion. The league is too good. It's not going to get watered down like people think it is. It's going to get better. There's more to fight for. So back to the Aces game. Not enough stamina. Not any fault of their own. 4 players on the Olympic team. 4 players on the Olympic team also happen to be 4 starters for the Aces. At some point, that was going to catch up with the Aces. And I figured it would catch up in this round because, for me, this is the round people are actually fighting the hardest. When you got that chip that's kind of hanging out there in your rearview mirror and kind of hanging out there as you look into the distant future, you're fighting hard in the semifinals rounds. And I thought the Aces would have to exert a whole lot of energy to win that game, and they just did not have it in them. As well as Asia played, she was not enough. I said it in my other video, y'all. She was not enough. You needed those others to play. And I love what I read. This is not an original Franergyism, but I read somewhere, and I can't remember, that said the Aces let the rest of the league catch up. It was something to that effect. Said another way, New York got better. Minnesota got better. The Aces didn't really let them do anything. They just got better. But what the person meant, they didn't mean that they let them, gave them permission. That meant that they messed around, looked around, and teams had gotten stronger, and they had not. So that's partly on the Aces. That's partly on the Aces feeling infallible. Listen, when you are the best team in the league, it's hard not to read your own press, even if you don't think you are. It's hard not to go to work every day with elite players, and there are some really amazing players on the Aces team. It's hard not to go to work with the best of the best and not think you're not the best of the best. And I think that's what the Aces did. I think they slipped up, thought they were so good, rightfully so, that they didn't factor into that equation. Fatigue, Olympic summer, end of the season. They didn't factor that in. The Aces, on a bad day, still top 4 team in the W. But when it gets down to fighting for a chip, for the right to play for a chip, you got to have more than 4 players. So that was the one reason that I thought the Aces would not make it through game 4. It was simply physical exhaustion. I've never seen the Aces fight through fatigue the way they did last night. Physically exhausted. Feet in mud. That's what our coaches used to say. Your feet are in mud. We're so tired. Our feet are in mud. It's like we're trying to play defense in mud. That's what the Aces look like. Meanwhile, in Gotham City, New York Liberty, they were looking sharp. You know why? Because they didn't have to wear their starters out. Now, Unescu and Stewie both played over 30 minutes, but everybody else played decent minutes, 17, 23, 20, those are decent minutes. Those are not exhausted players on the New York Liberty team. Those players were relatively fresh, and that was the biggest difference. So what you notice that there was a point during the game when the Aces were like 4 of 21. That's exhaustion. That wasn't just great defense because they were good looks. That's exhaustion. When you are tired, it's harder to get off the floor. It's harder to get your follow through up. Everything is harder when you're tired. That may sound like a no-brainer, but people don't realize every short shot is not just because you're miscalculation. Sometimes you're shooting short because you just don't have enough energy to. It's your girl, Fran Harris, former WNBA champion with the Houston Comets. It is finally here. Yes, the first novel set in the world of the WNBA. And it's got all the good stuff. It's got love, romance, true crime, forgiveness, redemption, all the stuff you love to see in great novels. If you love Terry McMillan and Waiting to Exhale, if you love Eric Jerome Dickey and all his madness, then you will love Houston by Morning. It's a story of 4 characters, a baller, an agent, a television personality, and a coach. And the way their lives collide into one another is a beautiful mess. Pick up a copy now on Amazon Kindle or at HoustonByMorning.com. Every short shot is not just because you're miscalculation. Sometimes you're shooting short because you just don't have enough energy to get the dang ball up. You just don't. And that's why the Aces succumbed to the New York Liberty yesterday. Not enough firepower. Not enough players. Not enough players. And let's give New York some credit. New York played well. They played like a team. If you listen to my video on the game the other night, New York, one of the things I said, is New York going to come out and fight like a team that wants to get to the finals and prove something? They did. You saw no sense of intimidation. You saw no sense of letting the home crowd get to them. New York played like a team that wanted to fight for a WNBA championship round. They wanted to get to the finals. And that's what happened yesterday. Kudos to the New York Liberty. They were a team that looked like they had no deficiencies. They had size, they had outside shooting, they had putting it on the deck, they had the transition game, they played defense, they had passion, they played with emotion, they rebounded. They played like a team that had gotten better in the offseason. And that's actually what Becky said in her press conference. She said they got better in the offseason. I love when she said they took a look at us and basically diagnosed us, what made us weak. These are my words, not hers. That the Liberty took a look at them, chopped up their weaknesses, and went to work. And that's exactly what happened. You hear Stewie and Ionescu and Benijah and those guys talk about their scout. This is not just watching hours and hours and hours of tape. People always brag about, oh, we watch so much tape and it doesn't matter if you're not watching the right kind of tape. If you're not watching the right film, it doesn't matter that you're watching 8 hours of film. But what we know Sandy Brondello does is she dices and slices up her opponents to the nuances, to the way they turn on the block, to how many dribbles they take before they pull up. Yeah. Finite minutia of every single player. That's why the New York Liberty beat the Aces last night. What are your thoughts? At what point during the game last night did you think the Aces were going to lose to the New York Liberty and not have an opportunity to three-peat? We'll see you in the next one.
That's all for now. Before you bounce, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and check out the merch.